whoever has the talking Clorox gets to speak. That's who gets to speak.
The talking Clorox. Whoever gets to speak is the strongest one. The one who dominates the others will. That's really the way these works.
Is that how this works? Okay, good.
We broke it down conversation to what it actually... It's all dynamic of power. I didn't like the cinematography. Hey, here we are.
Oh, I was going to harmonize, but I guess, we don't have to. He winks.
No, you can't just say,
I thought
hey, yeah.
Sure.
Hey. Okay.
Fine. Like,
Don't look at me again. It's like in the Pink Panther where he hires that dude to like attack and try and kill him. So he stays on his toes. That's what I've hired Nick to do.
I'm just surprised that you remember.
That's like a famous gag in the Pink Panther where he's like,
Are we talking Steve Martin?
All of them. It's always a gag where he has. You guys have never seen the Pink Panther.
Wait, he hires a person to try to kill him?
Yes, that's the biggest gag from those movies. He hires this guy who's always trying to kill him so he can stay on his guard.
I choose not to remember the Pink Panther movies.
Oh, come on, they were funny.
I've never seen an old one.
I know. Yeah, I've never seen the old one. I've only seen the Steve Martin ones.
Going in middle school with my friend Matt to go see the Steve Martin one, only for the hamburger scene.
Because it was the funniest thing.
And we were like, "That's funny as fuck." There's not going to be anything better. And
that was the funniest thing in middle school.
I shit you not. We left before the movie was over because I tell you we went for that is exactly why.
Oh, you went, saw the burger bit.
We left.
Everyone's looking for that one. Everyone is looking for Spider Pig, or everyone's looking for the fucking the trailer joke.
Fucking baffling why it's something like
love
Power
when people
Rangers.
laugh at the trailer joke and it gets a huge laugh. I'm like, what is happening here? It's like it's this kind of weird full room moment of we all know. We've all seen
there
the
was
trailer.
a thing I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there was a legitimate study that was when, especially in that situation, it's because you've been taught that that's funny. People have it's like when you're half listening to a conversation and you hear everybody else start to laugh or whatever, and you're like, and you're like,
I'm back in.
yeah, I'm part of it.
It's like scientists have confirmed that if you laugh at the trailer joke, you are lame as fuck.
Yes, interesting.
Empirically proven. What was the deal with this screening at ArcLight? Was there someone there to speak?
I had.
It was
just
kind of wandered in. It was. I think because I don't know. I didn't do my homework. I don't know about you guys. Good? Okay, great.
Great
So,
start.
and that's why I'm here.
And that's why we're here.
Not a good school. Nothing went well.
This is why,
we have a community service deal with the local.
Yeah, this is part of my parole.
With
but
the dumb idiot
dumb.
collection where we hire
That's what we're saying.
hire all of our guests.
Exactly.
The dumb idiot agency.
We just live on your porch and you just pick them out and you just say, and then you you know what,
like illegal day workers. Just I need 6 guests. Sir, I saw Colossal. It's like you're on. Welcome to Reasonable Beef, everybody. I am Tim E. Kish. I'm once again joined by who's here?
Me. It's me. Tom Ferry. You always do it like it's a question. Who's here?
It's always going to be.
We know.
It's Dom. And who's my guest today? Joined by
Aaron Daniel Jacob is his name.
ADJ. What are you?
I'm a session singer for the Disney Channel.
That's true.
And I make movies.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the show you work on at Disney Channel?
I did Phineas and Ferb first off, and now I'm doing a show called Milo Murphy's Law, and I sing tunes for that.
Very cool. And are they the same creator?
Same guys.
Yeah.
Dan Povenmire and Swampy.
Is Swampy someone's name?
Yeah, he's Jeff is his name, but we call he's Swampy.
Does he have a last name?
Yeah, Marsh.
Oh,
Swampy Marsh. Is he always wet?
No, but he smells kind of
gross.
like fungal, like what we were talking about earlier.
Anyway,
he's a fun guy.
Swampy, I love
Tim,
you.
You're better than that. Come on.
Excuse me. I will say again. He's a fun guy.
All right, sick. Great start.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. Thanks for being in my den.
You're welcome.
Is it a den? You've said this twice now today, and I forgot that we're all from the 60s.
Den has television. This is what I've learned. Den has a television. Living room does not have a television. Maybe a fireplace. That's what I've come to know is the difference between a den and a living room.
Just like a bear's den, where it needs a television
TV.
in order for them to survive the winter.
Right.
We saw Colossal.
We did.
Anne Hathaway, Jason
Shoejakis.
Jason Sudeikis, Kimmy Schmidt's dad, from
Wait.
the as his other friend.
While you guys figure this out, I'm gonna pull up the IMDb.
There's a lot of character actors.
Dude.
Some character actors I've seen around in the background of this movie.
Dan Stevens.
Yeah, holy shit.
Dan Stevens.
Exactly.
Yeah, Dan Stevens.
Yes.
Which is this? He's on a little streak, isn't he?
Everything
Directed by
a guy named Nacho.
Nacho Libre.
Nacho Vitalulu.
Vitaloolo.
It's Vitaldongo.
Okay.
I'm gonna look this up.
It's very close to Vitiligo. I'm actually
Nacho Villanueva, and 2017, which is the year of our Lord.
right.
Fuck.
Oh, damn, come on.
Oh, Jesus Christ. It was a flick. I said, fucking for girls, man. Fucking gay. Yeah. No, it was good. I really liked it.
Yeah,
it was a flawed movie. Very flawed movie. You have to suspend your disbelief.
I told you this yesterday after we walked out of the theater. I am so glad that we didn't record because we saw it yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't like.
I'm so glad that we didn't record it
right
after we saw it because I was able to think about it.
Yeah.
It percolated a little bit in my eyes, and now we can talk about it.
And, exactly. For those, I was trying to digest it, and I'm just like, oh, why didn't they get empty Korea when the monster started attacking them?
Yeah.
Because then all of the drama is gone.
Then the catharsis at the end of the movie is yeah.
But then the other one was Jason Sudeikis switching suddenly.
That was my biggest thing.
So he's gonna
and I mean we'll talk.
Are we
going to
dive right in?
I'll touch on that later.
That was our intro paragraph in high school where we breezed through all of the things we're going to talk about.
The three things.
Yeah, the
do
three
minimum body paragraphs, ending things, throw it away, and then smoke a bunch of weed.
In conclusion,
and then
I did this 20 minutes before class.
And then we got to put in sources afterwards. We got to easy bib so that we cite them right.
Easy bib.
Remember easy bib?
I don't think I ever used it.
That's when the automatic sources. You type in the name of the book and the pages, and then it types it in for you.
I did it like a fucking actual academic. When I wrote my
I learned as an academic. I'm just a fucking failure.
When I wrote my paper about the history of video games and then reused it 5 or 6 times in my public school career, I studied those sources by myself. So
I somehow got through college without ever actually figuring out how to write an essay or paper.
See, I
went through all 4 years and I had to do many of them. But every time I would
the goddamn you took writing the essay.
Writing the essay.
Writing the goddamn essay.
ACA format or MBA or APA format.
MLA.
I use Word.
MLA, ladies and gentlemen.
We're writing this in NBA format.
In NBA format. Just fucking
we dribble
I make a point and then I just
dribble a basketball until it looked like words or like semblance of words. NBA is basketball, right?
We're not going to find this joke.
Yeah, I don't know. We're trying. Bless our little fucking souls.
Where could it be?
Sad little boys in a room.
So where do we want to start?
Fuck. Bye. Goodbye, everyone. That's where I want to. Let's start at the end. Like a good film. Start at the end.
Way to do this podcast is to stop.
Okay, so I will go on. I guess let's open with the beef. There were some things that are. I mean, some stilted dialogue at certain points. From my initial
Do we want to say what the movie was about for people that haven't seen the movie?
Yeah, we could open with it. So this is a limited release movie, so I think that's actually kind of important.
Probably.
Just like La La Land initially, there was like 2 theaters in like L.A. and New York.
Right. Sure,
I think,
and we'll see if it gets a wide. I really hope it does. I think it deserves it. This movie, Anne Hathaway plays a horrible drunk. She fucks up her relationship in New York City, has to move back home to her normal old-fashioned town, and she finds that at 8:05 a.m., if she is in this small section of playground at her old, I guess, elementary school, she manifests as a monster on the other side of the world in Seoul, South Korea. Mouth Korea, which is
South Korea.
Best Korea.
That's the only one.
And it's fucking what?
I'm opening up a club called Mouth Korea tomorrow.
But and she finds that this small section of the playground maps perfectly over the city of Seoul, South Korea.
Right.
And it's a monster therapy movie is how I heard it described, where she uses the fact that she can become a monster. She like grows to appreciate life, and she gets over her alcoholism. And it is fucking not as weird. They play that premise so straight.
These movies make me. It's in one. On one hand, I'm glad because they're maybe acting as some sort of vanguard for people jumping on board with big, stupid supernatural metaphor things.
High concept.
But then the other, I mean metaphors. Like I mean this is the maybe one of the most distilled versions I've ever seen, where they're saying, so you know how so like E.T. is like it's more about divorce, or like I'm trying to think of like I don't know, you can take most superhero things and extend what their powers are, what the problem is.
The monster is very rarely just a monster. Like it usually in good horror, it has a representation.
There's some sort of reason why.
Babadook was
Sure.
an
I've never seen the
example of
Babadook, but I believe you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like without going into it, it's like there's
It's like a Babadook. There's like a Babadook there.
Babadook, yeah, you know, right?
Yeah, no, sick.
No, but that movie's about like grief, and so you like grief and like dealing with like a troubled kid as a parent.
And it's like the monsters of the relationship, or the monster is the blah,
which
blah,
is
blah.
which I think is important. I think that's
Because
Obama's
just like
Obama's coming into my house, into my
I
closet,
said the
and
monster is blah blah blah.
into my freedoms. But anyway, yeah. So it's clearly it's a metaphor for.
But in this, it's there's no other. There is nothing else. There is no other explanation because it is completely tied to her being drunk.
Yeah, and that's going into. I mean, is spoilers in this?
Yes.
Yeah,
we can spoil it.
We're going to spoil
Yes.
these things.
Okay, so you realize that what I really liked about this, and I just had to decide whether or not I liked about it. This thing that was a sentence. Here we
job.
go. Thank you.
A+.
Is they didn't go into the how of it, how they got these like powers. Like in super duper detail, because it didn't matter, because the story was about this other thematic thing. I mean, you get the lightning, they go into the like the whatever like forest.
That's actually cut a beef for me, because I wish they almost wouldn't have at all.
You would have gone without that one flashback.
Well, because it doesn't answer any questions where it's like they got the power because they got struck by lightning.
The only thing is because they're holding, one of them's holding the monster toy and then the robot toy.
That's the second half of my point, which is it doesn't answer any questions where it says, okay, they got struck by lightning, they get the power, and it raises questions, which is why does no one recognize these licensed characters that are attacking South Korea?
Well, I thought it was like he had like dollar store.
Sure.
Like just some monster.
Yeah, I guess. But someone somewhere would have been like, hey, hang on.
It would have been better if like they were both like it's a giant Groot.
It's a Groot versus a Gundam. Jesus Christ.
Disney is getting aggressive in their advertising campaigns.
It would have made more sense if like maybe like I agree, like maybe they'd drawn them or something, like he drew a robot and she drew a giant monster.
But he's right, because it's almost like just don't go there. I mean, I was reading an interview where the director was talking about how that for him was like an emotional climb, and it was literally to serve that this was like there was an extension. It wasn't just that this relationship between them started here, that there was always sort of some sort of weird like abusive.
Well, I always got that where he was always a bully to her.
Well, to jump into that, I'm sorry, finish your point.
No, that was it.
Okay, so to jump into the theme of that, like I viewed him, Jason Sudeikis' character. So she gets left by her boyfriend, moves back home, and suddenly this guy shows up, and he's like, "Oh, hey, it's you. Do you remember me? I'm an old friend." He's alcohol. Clearly, this guy represents alcohol.
He owns a bar,
right? And he's like, familiar, and she's happy with him for a while, and then shit turns sour really quickly, and it ruins all of her other relationships. It keeps her from getting back with this old guy. It keeps her from moving on and finding someone else. And then it's also to say that when you cut back to him and see him as a little boy, which he destroys her like diorama. That's like the big reveal. He's never been good for her. Like they've never worked well together.
Right.
And I think that's interesting. That's what it means to me.
I'm not sure if I think that's an interesting way to look at it, but I do think because the movie. Here's the thing: and this is my biggest beef with the thing. Is that it felt like when it switched gears halfway through, when it did become more just like, okay, there's a bad guy now. Do you kind of know what I mean? Where it was like in the beginning, it was we're gonna be here, and this lady's gonna have to fix herself, and there's a lot of stuff with her that she needs to figure out. Whether or not Dan Stevens is even really nice to her in the first place is irrelevant. But we open with like she messed up a relationship.
You mean Jason Sudeikis?
No. I mean Dan Stevens in the beginning.
Oh yeah,
it's like and you get the vibe that he's controlling and he's kind of an asshole.
Sure.
Because
he's not right for her either.
Right. No. Right.
Yeah, okay. and that's really apparent at the end of the movie.
Yeah, and she doesn't choose either. But anyway.
But so the fact that it switches, she kind of solves her when she trips and crushes all the people, where she kills X amount of people. It's right. It's literally halfway through the movie because it's on the same beat that we find out that he turns into the robot.
It's a midpoint. It's a classic like.
And I was very excited by that too, because I was like, what? Yeah. And what's fun about it too is you think that that's going in the direction of he's a savior. He's like the robot who quells the monster, who stops the monster, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of what you think is going to happen. Right, and it's going the other way. That wasn't a fart. That was I turned on the chair. Did you hear it?
I didn't even pick.
Did you pick that up, Nick?
Please?
Nick, did you pick up the fart?
Give me work to do.
We're getting a nod here from the engineer.
That fart had a limited release. I'm hoping it doesn't go wide.
Oh, it'll go wide.
That's some quality. That's right there.
But so what I'm getting, okay. The fact that she kind of, she stops drinking halfway through the movie.
Yeah.
So that problem sort of gets dealt with, and this was something that clouded up the whole movie for me, was that it felt like she sort of got better and was completely unrewarded for making the right quote-unquote character choice in the movie. It was like, oh, she stopped drinking now, she's being better, but there's still, like, but now both dudes are being assholes to her, and the one is experiencing a descent into true villainy. Like, this dude is actually evil.
Well, yeah, no, I think... Here's what I think. I think it's when you look at the film under the lens of, like, it's a metaphor for alcoholism, yeah, I agree. Like, in the middle of the movie happens, she quits drinking, and there's that one moment like halfway through the second half of Act 2 where he, like, puts a beer and says, "Drink it," and you get that taunting moment, and, like,
if she had drank when he taunts her, when he puts the beer down, and if she drank with him and got drunk with him, and then they both fucked up the city the next day. And I know that's a way more obvious. And I try not to get my feet glued down to, like, story structure stuff.
No, yeah,
and, like, it has to be this way. But, like, again, I think why I have the problem with it is because there wasn't continued connective tissue to her alcoholism.
Well, let me counter. That's addiction, where yes, she stopped drinking, but she's not out of the woods yet. She could go back to it at any time. So whereas he's there constantly being that temptation, and that's when he turns nasty, when she quits drinking. Like, if you know anyone with addiction,
that's fair. Yeah,
they've stopped drinking hundreds of times. Stop smoking cigarettes.
It's withdrawal.
Hundreds
it's the
of
withdrawal.
Times.
The anger.
Not even necessarily withdrawal, but like that pull, that whatever broke you, whether it be chemical or you have something in your head that's not letting you move on from this. The addiction will goad you back. I
suppose that's
represented when she won't leave the bar.
That, though, if you saw him being more convincing. I guess where the gap is for me is that he is so actually bad. It is true evil. Well, what he's doing is he wants to kill people and he wants to keep her there. Like,
but again, it's a metaphor. It's not. He's not an actual.
But it's a bad metaphor because that's if you want to go down that he's an extension of the alcoholism thing. I think it doesn't work that way, because that's like saying someone who's addicted to alcohol, other people will die if they don't drink. Do you kind of know what I'm saying?
Well, so then when the monster comes into it, it becomes a little bit more
exactly, which is why I had there was a logic gap that I was missing. Right. Again, because I never felt like she was tempted more. I just felt like he's being evil. Of course, she has to fucking stop him because he wants to kill people.
Sure.
Like, there wasn't a question. I think
it's about the impetus. It's about, like, where instead of it being about her life falling apart, it becomes the impetus of, like, okay, she needs to stop this or else there will be serious damage.
Well, there's another like,
so it's taking her problem and amplifying it.
There's another layer to this, and it has to do with all of her relationship towards men in particular. Like, the first layer on this, and that's where I was getting at, is that the first layer of this film is sort of a metaphor for alcoholism and the sort of the baggage that comes with that, and how, you know, quite literally your drunken escapades have repercussions, maybe even on the other side of the globe, and, like, that's very,
and I appreciate that they don't. Like, I go back and forth between thinking that could have been the whole movie, but there's also, like, okay, we deal with it.
Yeah,
she gets drunk, she fucks stuff up, we get it.
How do you keep her in that loop if it's so blatantly like, okay, I'm not going to kill hundreds of people anymore, I'm going to stop drinking, because that's, like, blatantly wrong. But there's another layer to it that's, like, in this weird way, it's sort of the second half of the movie in particular becomes a metaphor for, like, I guess, abusive men in different ways, manipulative ways that men manipulate this woman. And I think that's what the film is really about, and that's where this whole thing is coming from.
Which is why, though, it feels jarring when that happens an hour in, as opposed to, like, that we get the vibe that's going to be the movie. Mm-hmm. Do you kind of know what I mean?
Yeah, because I agree with that, because the first half of the movie is Trainwreck, who's a drunkard, is going to get her life together,
and I think part of it rubbed me a weird way, because and it has completely valid points that it's making in the second half, and it makes you uncomfortable, and it's kind of hard to watch sometimes, and it's good, it's powerful in that respect, and it does just become ultimately, you know, I was talking to Amber about it, and Amber saw it more as this completely rounded out her 100% just taking control, and, like, do you know what I mean? Just across all aspects of her life, stepping up and stopping everything that's bad for her.
Which is like a more global way of looking at that character, and I agree, yeah.
The men aren't characters in this movie. Yeah. Well, I mean, they are, but I think in a lot of ways, every man in this is a representative of something. And to go back to my other point of him being alcohol, that's reflected in the relationships he has with his friends as well. Like, he's clearly a dick to all of his friends. Yeah. And like, they don't get any benefit. So why do they keep coming back? Why do they keep hanging around after taking such like abuse and such like fuck ups from him?
And then there's another, now I get into, flesh and bone plot issues because
so now we're beyond,
when he's being that insane, I had so many times, and this is one of those things where it's so easy to make people stop questioning why they haven't called the police or whatever.
Right.
He knows everyone in town. We see that in the movie, so I can maybe by extension just infer, of course they're not going to the police because he clearly is chummy with fucking everyone and it wouldn't go anywhere anyway.
Right.
Like, this cop would show up and be like, okay, just, take it easy, you two. But like, it was so insane that I was like, why is nobody doing something in the real world to stop him?
Sure.
And by the real world, I mean not the monster metaphor world, where it's like, okay, I get that he's a monster, and it's like once they're in that situation, it's tricky. How do you get him out of there without hurting people? But like, when he's in her house, I was kind of like, you could like 1000% call the police right now. And get him.
I know, but that's the whole thing. It's more about how, I mean, it's, again, this goes back to how, abuse and manipulation can affect somebody. They won't act rationally.
So that's a great way to look at it. And I agree that I think it is doing that, but I think it's not doing it as well as it maybe could because I'm not seeing the choice in her.
I'm with Tom on this. They need to take her options off the table first and foremost. Like, establish she can't call the cops, she can't like attack this guy and kill him or whatever. Like, take the options off the table.
Or 100% the other way.
Yes.
Make us literally watch that she's picking to stay under his thumb when she could, and they didn't. It just became movie frustrating, not narratively frustrating.
I agree. And I wish they would have shown us more ways that he, not as a metaphor, but as a human being, was manipulating her. You know what I mean? In ways that aren't just like suddenly changing and now he's a monster.
Yeah, and that was my thing walking out of the movie.
I got it with
one of my biggest gripes was how, I think it was within like a scene, like there's that scene they realize he's a robot. Then they have that scene at the diner where he's
the
like
robot. He isn't whatever.
The robot.
No.
And they have the scene at the diner where he's like, calm down, nobody's gonna nobody's gonna know. Or it's
still likable.
Still likable, yeah. And then the next scene, I forget what the next scene was, but he was like,
because she goes to sleep with the younger guy, and I thought him acting out initially, and it probably was, but they never confronted each other. I was expecting when she showed up, he was surprised that she was off with the guy.
Yeah.
So it was like when they showed up, I thought, he's pissed.
I guess they did, and they established earlier in the movie where like when she was flirting with him, like initially he was like, don't fucking do that.
He got John Goodman mad.
Yeah, he did.
He got 10 Cloverfield Lane mad about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I almost wish there was more. I wish this was a more visual film. I think is there. I wish there were more cues when we were drifting into the insanity and like. It didn't just kind of play straight the whole time.
It's funny. I actually took notice of that. I didn't think that the craft of the movie itself was like too terribly impressive.
Yeah.
And I think it was on purpose as well.
I loved it conceptually. Yeah. I'm sorry. Please.
I was just saying. I think that's on purpose for sure. I mean, he's doing it's 100%. A indie drama, and then we're gonna cut away and
which I love, which is great. Like some of my favorite stories are like, here's this big, massive Mondo world that exists with magic and monsters and dragons, but we're gonna hang out with these three people.
And there wasn't.
That's why I love. You mentioned it, 10 Cloverfield Lane. That's why I love that movie so much. Is because here's this movie with I guess aliens, but then it's just three people in a room basically, and I love that.
I also like how they don't shy away from the implication.
But Cloverfield was more visually dynamic to me. They did.
I agree. I would say it was
they did so much more
yeah.
with such smaller space with lighting and blocking.
Yeah, I agree.
And composition, where this film had a whole town that they can play with, and it still kind of just looked muddled and indie, which I guess is a choice. I just that could just be that I didn't like the way that it looked.
Sure.
Yeah, because I'm
It was a little
it's
plain.
Also just easier to provide better visuals when you have a tight space like that.
More control, I guess. Yeah. When you have more control,
less places to be.
Exactly. You're looking at a space and you're like, what ways can I manipulate the space instead of how many spaces do I have?
In a way, it's impressive that the monster looked good at all, because it's like you could see where they were deciding where money was going to go, and that's 100% apparent when
in the crowd scenes and the
crowd scene stuff, but in also like when you see that when they're in the bar and we're gonna get there in a second, when the bar's on fire and all the fire is CGI.
That looked like shit.
Was it?
Oh,
yeah,
so
that's
like
great.
shit.
That's great that it pulled it. I didn't think it looked bad, but I noticed. I could tell. I was like,
it was
okay,
out of.
Yeah.
You know why? Because it was out of. Like it was like
there was a. Yeah, I know exactly the shot you're talking about.
I think it's at Dan Stevens or something where you see behind him. It's like
supposed to be
out of focus and it's sharp
entirely.
and it's sharper,
which is good. That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, because it wasn't bad.
Good for you, Tim.
No, it wasn't unsuccessful.
Oh, no. You're just one of those normal non-filmmakers.
I genuinely know.
I'm glad you're keeping your eyes closed.
I feel like that's one of those things that takes you trying to, at some point, have tried to composite fire into something and like being so aware what it looks like, because there's something about it that just rings. It's a hair left of.
Well,
correct.
there are people that can do that so well, and I'm not saying that the filmmakers aren't talented. It's just it was, at least, you know.
I understood it, but anyway, what all I was getting was, it's interesting though, because I love that sort of thing where they're like, you know, listen, we don't really necessarily need to, like, it's going to cost this much money to set this fucking place on fire, or like a piece of this place on fire, and have the people who are the pyro experts there and blah blah blah, or we could just like cut this fucking sheet and add fire in later and get some orange lights.
Yeah. And we can make the monster look good.
Yeah,
like
and the monster looked great, and the robot looked great.
We never quite really get a good look at it, which is smart.
Well, I think that still makes it good, because they still use their resources properly.
Sure.
You know?
I love the crowd cheering, or you hear everybody's watching.
Oh
it on
my
TV.
God! Sound design of this film was incredible.
Yeah, it actually was really good. And they do this thing where she always looks to this row home, and you hear throughout the town every time she steps in, just like a very muffled cheer.
Yeah, like
and
everybody's watching this on TV.
They don't really call attention to it either. It's just like
watching.
Well, that's what this film is about too. That's another thing that this film is about, is these Jason Sudeikis' character is like a guy who typical guy who got trapped in his town because of whatever circumstances, and he wants to be more. Like he's a big fish in a small pond right now. He wants to be in a bigger pond and even bigger fish.
Yeah.
And here's, in his eyes, Anne Hathaway, who did that, but obviously we know that she's like, you know, she feels everything but that. And so here are these two people that are craving like attention and recognition and influence, and all of a sudden they have that. On the other side, on a gigantic scale, except nobody knows it's them, and that's I think that's the one thing that for me justifies Jason Sudeikis going bananas, is because when you think about that, if you're in the mind of someone,
all of a sudden had that power,
if you all of a sudden had that power and you were that low, which he obviously is, because he's just as much of an alcoholic as she is,
right?
He's just better at hiding it. You might go there. You might go there if you're twisted in that way.
I guess I wanted a slightly smooth, because it was jarring. I mean, who?
Oh my God!
And that's fine. And I think that's also part of it. To get back on track quickly with the men thing, which I think is definitely an important part of it, and the manipulation thing, and the, like, you know, oppressive in ways that, like, the gaslighting and
my
issue is that maybe he gets so overtly aggressive and scary that you're like, where's the what are we saying here? It just becomes scary, and that's fine, because it was kind of cool. That's a cool device where it's like, okay, if you have this thing where in this spot you turn into a monster and you could kill a bunch of people, then we're going to deal with the people trying to get into the Jaeger or whatever. Like, that's going to be more of where our attention's going to come from, is like, if he sets foot in the fucking Gundam, then there's going to be problems. So get him out of it. Don't let him get there. You know what I mean? That's interesting. But I don't know. I guess
I like that they don't shy away from the implication of what it means that there's a giant robot and a monster hanging out in Seoul, South Korea. Like, throughout the whole movie, they're like, yeah, war's over. Like, we're done with that for a little. Like, we're done with that for a while.
Yeah,
exactly. And then she talks about how, like, if it stops showing up, like, will everyone just go back to fighting again? Like, what happens when the monster goes away?
Right.
And that's a theme that's not really touched on at any point again for the rest of the movie.
It's such a can of worms.
Yeah. It is. It's a huge.
It's a different movie.
And it's a really different movie. Yeah, it's great that they're touching on those implications, but, like, please don't make me think about it, because that makes me question the logic of the movie. And of stuff like, why is Seoul not evacuated, or et cetera, et cetera.
In it, I was not questioning anything except for, why is nobody doing anything about crazy guy?
Yeah, like, so
when this dude sets off fireworks and legitimately puts you in harm, they immediately could have had him, like, arrest. Like, that's a crazy thing to do.
That's probably my least favorite scene in the whole thing.
Oh, that was crazy. That was insane. The fireworks thing.
It was very. Well, so the whole thing. I think the whole movie should have been 10 minutes shorter. I think it's 110 minutes. I think it would have been a good, nice 100-minute movie, because it says pretty much what it needs to say. And I think scenes like that, where he's like going through this whole diatribe or this whole monologue about how, you know, we drove and we got this thing, we never lit it off, and now he lit it off. And I'm like, this sucks. This
It's a
is
little,
stupid.
it's villain, it's masturbatory villain.
It is, and it's not even particularly like yes, you're not setting up.
We're building to this tension, and
But there's no real tension building. It's like, okay, he's gonna light it, and something's gonna happen. And then most disappointingly, nothing particularly happens.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about that scene. It lives up to my expectations. He's gonna. It'd be one thing if something else happened that would change the course of my expectations. My expectation being, he's just gonna light it, and the thing's gonna go on fire. And guess what happens? He lights the thing, and it goes on fire.
But I guess again, to go back to him being alcohol, you could say like he does this insane thing, and she's still like not gonna walk away. Where it's like, okay, so there's that symbolism again of him being alcohol, but when you remove it in any other context and you're not looking at it in that lens, it's like, what the fuck?
I still think that lens doesn't quite fit there.
Well, here's a question: Are we? Is this world? Does this movie take place in like a very hyper realistic, naturalistic world, or is there an edge to it? I mean, besides the fact that monsters and
I think it's pretty realistic.
Yeah, I think they were trying to take it
normal. Then it's bad to have a character like Jason Sudeikis be completely representational and have no justification for that. Because if we're in a movie, that's
I don't know if I agree.
So let me. What I was gonna about to start going down was the men thing and these different like. And it was funny, and it makes me uncomfortable when I don't catch these things, and like Amber, like my girlfriend says it, and I was like, maybe
how could that woman know more than I about the craft?
No, I meant embarrassing in that like I was starting to, not side with, because he was clearly being like a douche, but not side with the Dan Stevens character. But I was like, I don't know, I kind of felt unfair that like we start this movie where she is clearly not being nice to him and invites people over to his place.
Well, here's what I will...
And then at the end, there's still the like, you were mean. Now here's why though, and Amber sort of pointed out, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Was when she does go home and she stops drinking and she gets a job, he continues to be
he's a
condescending and shitty.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like,
so it's clearly he's not good for her.
He's just not nice, and that's these are the other ways people are manipulating. And
that's the point. If you're putting yourself in, if you're supposed to be, this was an interesting thing about this movie. Anne Hathaway's character, I was so fascinated by her because she was such a train wreck, was not making any good decisions in her life at all. Yet for some reason I still wanted to see her overcome it. And I can't help but think maybe I don't know why. And I can't figure out. I'll have to figure this out.
Anne Hathaway's incredibly likable. Like that. It's I think a part of it is that it's just like, there's that actress.
There is also main character blanket where, I mean, how many times have we watched someone who's objectively shitty, but because that's their
Ferris
guy.
Bueller is a terrible person and friend and just entity. Like he should be in jail.
He's a little jerk.
He's awful.
But we're like we're with him, so it's like we're gonna. And even with her, it's I hate to say always bring up like the save the cat thing, but she saves the cat in the beginning of the movie by virtue of like when you start with our main character getting broken up with, especially because we don't see her be like, she doesn't light his fucking apartment on fire or like smash his stuff.
She comes home drunk and we have to assume.
Right. And we understand she's disappointed him over and over and over again, and she seems apologetic, but she's not owning up to it. And you get when she gets broken up with, she feels bad. So we're like,
yeah.
No, I get that. But what I do love is how the dynamics of the men character change by the end of the film. And if the audience is supposed to, let's assume that the audience is in Anne Hathaway's shoes, these men are being. Some of them are being helpful to her. They're telling her exactly what she needs to hear, and then she takes that advice. And all of a sudden, we start seeing behind that. We see how destructive and manipulative and irrational they are.
That's the two extremes where he's like all business, your career. You're not focusing enough on you're over here working as a waitress. You should be writing, and it's just like, man, fuck you. Like I don't have to be an alcoholic, but I also don't have to be like that because.
And there's that line at the end where he's like, "You're entitled to give me an explanation." She's like, "Actually, no, I'm not."
Right. Well, so to further the point where there's different kinds of manipulation, and the I just want what's best for you kind of manipulation is some of the most insidious shit.
Oh my god.
So it's like,
I'm doing this for you.
Not that I'm doing this for you, but it's just like when he's going in on her like that, it's like,
Well,
okay,
I'm
you're an
being
asshole.
hard on you because you need it and because you deserve it.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
like,
Instead of being like a supportive, partner, which is
his response to her cleaning up and getting a job should have been like, "Wow, okay, good.
Like, I'm glad you have.
I'm really glad you did
initiative.
that."
But instead, it's why you waitress.
Waitress.
Yeah.
That's what. And then on the other side, we have the dude. Jason Sudeikis is so and even after he starts being shitty, we see those things because everybody's been there in somewhere where you do like, or you act a way that you really don't like, and then there's that like I'm sorry thing, and then it maybe happens again or whatever, and you're like, fuck.
Sure.
So that dude, like, he apologizes, he gives her all the furniture and everything, and I was reading something where they were like, it's the nice guy facade. It's the like, I want to fill your house with all the stuff. I really care about you. Oh, I'll get up in the middle, And
it's funny because the movie kind of presents him like that, where he's like, they set him up and put them in a bunch of scenes where it's like, oh, so like, nah, there's gonna be some romance growing. And then there's not. She just wants to fuck this other guy. That's great. That is fucking. I can't tell you how great that is because we're almost bought into his illusion of like, oh, it's like she returns home and she meets this old small town guy and there's gonna be a love. It's like, no, she just fucking is just.
She wants to have sex with the more attractive dude.
Exactly. She wants to have sex with the more attractive guy because she
straight
likes
up
him.
says it. You're like in like a more subdued way, like you're the most attractive person in the room. That's why I want to fuck you.
But that's so forward thinking and feminist. I fucking could not help but love it.
At the end, where the whole line about entitlement, that's one of the lines that really stuck out to me. Where Dan Stevens says, I feel like I'm entitled to. I think you owe me an explanation, and she says, actually, no, I don't. I really don't. Yeah. And I loved that because
those are and you know what's funny
is kicks him down a well.
But in the movie, certain parts like that, because I was still sort of reeling from the gear shift. And this sounds it maybe sounds nastier than I mean it to, but it was like it felt like it was about someone who needs to right the wrongs that they've made for themselves. And then by the end, it sort of felt like other people are bad, and I need to tell them no.
Yeah. I guess I wish
it felt like at that point especially when we started the movie feeling like, wow, she disappointed him to the point where he was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I don't want you in my life anymore. And then at the end, she's like, yeah, well, you broke up with me, so I don't owe you anything. And it's like, well, okay, but also he broke up with you because you had clearly upset, like you would.
I agree with that.
I think fucking the relationship up in the beginning.
I think
I don't know. It was something.
But we don't see everything,
which very true. But what we do see is the scene where he comes and he's in the hotel and he fucking says like, yeah, it's great, real great start to your new life, and you're like, oh, okay, right,
that's
he
true.
sucks.
Yeah,
that's true. I think this film works because we've spent the last, how long's it been, Nick? 30 minutes? 45 minutes?
32.
It's been the last 32 minutes.
We're halfway.
I think we've spent maybe a minute of that on the fact that there is a giant robot and a monster in this movie.
Fun.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
But that's awesome. That's a testament to the movie.
Exactly. Well, that's the representative of the movie where the giant robot and the monster are as an afterthought, which is so weird. I can't begin to tell you how fucking, how did this get made?
The monster's on the poster.
Yeah.
The monster's on the poster.
Great poster, by the way.
The retro,
the tick where she scratches the top of her head as the reveal where she realizes that she's the monster is that's like a nice little audience thing because they established that.
That's such a movie. That's such a movie thing.
It is a movie thing. I call them investigation moments where it's like the audience for all the moms in the audience who love to figure out what's going to happen next. She's the monster. It's like yes, she is.
What did we watch? Was it Power Rangers where there was like these? It was exactly those two 50-something-year-old women behind us.
I forget what it was. She's gonna be the green one. She was the green one.
Right. Like, I can't remember what it was, but it was like, oh right, it's the rocks make them the Power Rangers. and it was like sweet. It wasn't annoying.
He's got the red one, so he's gonna be Margie's gonna be the Red Ranger.
Sweet. But you're right. That's what those moments are.
Investigation. I like that.
People like to call it
like they're fucking. Like their goddamn Sherlock Hemsworth for
deduction, like
figuring it out. Holmes, what the fuck is wrong with me,
buddy? It's all that Wendy's.
Sherlock Hemsworth. That's the Hemsworth brother they keep locked in the basement, like fucking chained to the radiator.
How you started saying that because
take your
of like
meat.
Hemlock Grove.
Sure.
I feel like you
Sherlock Hemsworth.
Anyway,
Sherlock Hemsworth.
Mm-hmm.
As for
remain in your cage, Hemsworth.
Please, can I star in a summer blockbuster? Back to your turnips, or
just this once. Again, I'm glad it definitely grew because I was jarred. I don't know. It knocked me off center when it switched gears as hard as it switched gears.
I guess, yeah.
And I have a hard, even still, and it seems smoother now as I'm like thinking back through over the movie and everything, but I really do want to see it again, knowing sort of where we're going to end up, because I was having a really hard time connecting it to the first half of the movie and like being like, why was that the same when she's walking in slow motion at the end to the river? What emotionally had she accomplished at that point? Because it didn't just feel like, because it wasn't, and we've just talked about, this movie was not, we're talking for 1 minute about the monster and the robot. So when she's walking, and this is clearly a very big triumphant moment, I wasn't sure why. I really wasn't. It was cool. I thought that was really fucking smart when I realized what she was doing. I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's awesome. But it felt like this big yes. She has overcome all of these things that were weighing on her, but I didn't know what they were.
Sure.
Exactly.
That's
at that
true.
point.
Like what was causing her alcoholism, I guess.
No, it just was what was
everything else.
I see what you're getting. According to you, she had overcome her alcoholism at the midpoint of the movie, basically.
Not overcome, obviously, but she had made the hard, I'm not going to drink. And she doesn't for the rest of the movie. She doesn't drink, right?
What's the catharsis at the end that we're supposed to feel when she's having this big moment? I mean,
and here's what it is. And if I think why I get attached to these things a little too hard. I think that I like these metaphor things to be kind of airtight and have direct lines to different things. But the problem is that the movie is such a direct metaphor so frequently that when at the end of it, I was like, okay, but so what does this mean?
I viewed it as she's using her power, where she has this power in her to become the monster, right?
And what it took was removing herself.
Where she has to be like, okay, well, if I'm not gonna, I can't handle him like this, like just on my own. I need to be this other thing. Like I need to use the power inside of me and approach this problem in a different way.
Removing herself. It was just saying, that fucking is enough's enough, and then that is ultimately what kind of like
I think that worked from it. But I can see why at the end it almost seems like not unearned, but kind of
it was too grand,
obligatory of okay, we need some kind of big thing at the end,
which it was great. Like the rules of it were fantastic,
super cool. And again, I don't know why I feel like a kind of like a dick about it, because I felt like I still was like trying to connect everything that was physical and had to do with the monster to something going on.
This is a second viewing kind of movie.
Yeah,
I'm gonna need to watch this.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
It's not particularly like dense or like heady, but it's worth watching again. I think
there's something really interesting to be said about a film where you have an idea of, okay, I think I know where this film is going to lead me. I know I kind of have an idea of where it's going to end, and then it switches gears on you. I can totally understand how that might be off-putting to somebody.
Most of the time, though. I love that. I mean, who doesn't? You love to be surprised by stuff, but I guess it was something emotional, and it was my need to connect everything to some person problem.
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
That sounds like it's fucking you. That sounds like this movie's fine. You're fucking bad.
But you know what's funny? I genuinely think that I'm thinking too hard. I actually believe that I'm trying to dig too deep into something that ultimately should just chalk up to like she stood up and won. She stopped. She said, "I'm gonna win now," and she did it. She's stronger. She fucking you said, she used her power. End of story.
I'm going to be in charge of my own life and my own decisions and my own paths.
I like that they had to give us the beat of Jason Sudeikis calling her he's screaming, crying for his life, and then he calls her a bitch. It's like, okay, now we can kill him.
Now we can throw
him
into space.
Dude, the way she kills him.
I know.
Obviously, it cuts to the robot, but it is so comical. Well, so that's another interesting thing that they do at once, where they show one thing to represent another. So there's a important turning scene where he pushes her down. He finally uses like real violence against her, and he's just stomping in a playground.
And you hear all that.
And it's in slow motion. Well, so hang on. So it's moving in slow mo, and it's just him stomping on a playground
on mulch,
and she's screaming and crying.
Yeah.
And like take it out of context, it's like, oh, this is silly, but he's obviously you're supposed to imagine there's a monster, and it is layered over. There's people screaming, and you hear cars and buildings exploding, and then again juxtaposed against the end where she fucking hurls his body into the goddamn stratosphere, and it cuts to the robot flying into the distance, and I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that is what he really is.
It's brilliant. I mean, that's what it being good at teaching us, it being good at getting us on board and making and I know it's not a huge stretch to say this is when this is happening here, this is happening there. Like that's not insanely complicated, but that's how incredible is it when that moment really lands for a whole audience of people being like, wow, we get it.
It's still a testament to the filmmakers that they established that language so clearly. No matter how simple it is, it's still so awesome when, because again, it's another like sleuthing detective moment where you're like, oh my God.
I really, really liked that the rule was limited by the playground, because going into it I wasn't sure exactly how this was going to work, where it was like she realizes when she's
I thought it was going to be that she was whenever she blacked out, she would
I thought it was at first.
I didn't put that together from the going into the movie, like from the trailers and stuff, so I was curious about how it was going to, what exactly the connection was going to be, and I think that's the smartest shit in the world. I mean, that's how you do any of these things.
You got to close it in.
When it's such a bonko concept, it's like, okay, but only in the playground.
And I think
that opens up like a
you build fandoms, and now people can like debate and talk about it, because it's like, okay, here are the rules and how it needs to play out. Like what could feasibly have been what happened,
which is why the end. That's why it's so fucking sick that when she's in Korea and then the monster's in America.
Yeah,
like we knew that both of these, everyone knew and believed it. You were like, oh, of course that's how that would work.
Yeah,
which is insane. That's a crazy thing to think. Yeah, that's how that would work.
And they wouldn't know that because they're both of them just happen to be in America.
But they taught us the movie. Yeah, but it's fun.
Man, good flick. I didn't even talk about the tone yet, where this was a great balance of actual comedy, actual horror, and like drama, actual drama that I gave a shit about. And I was just like, wow.
That's really right. Every single time it did one of those things, it was successful.
Like there was laughter and gasps, and then more laughter, and then more. Like the audience was so visceral. Like when I could just hear everyone having the reactions that they were supposed to have.
Some of the nonchalant, sarcastic humor in this, it killed me. Like the whole thing where it was like, do you see this on the news? It's this giant monster. Oh yeah, that happened yesterday, weren't you? Yeah. Did you not see it?
Like a weird commentary on like the 24-hour news cycle. Or no, he said that happened 9 hours ago.
9 hours ago,
like, what? And she's just like, there's just a monster now. Who cares if it was
they took it like there was some hurricane that happened in Haiti.
Yeah,
but it's like, oh, didn't you hear about that already?
Yeah,
but it's a fucking monster.
Then it was also they actually grapple with the monster.
Well, that beat was like because she was sleeping all day, and it was like, what the fuck have you been doing all day? Then you didn't hear about it.
It's another jab at her being a train wreck.
But I love that. But it reads as comedy and like commentary on like the 20. Like, oh, come on, wait, we moved on.
Yeah,
there's bombs now.
That's crazy.
Love you go into the accent whenever you talk as Dan Stevens. Yeah, you have to.
Thank you.
It's already gone. It's.
I can't live in Legion.
I'm not doing it.
Super American ass accent,
which is great. I love he's
the other one that killed me was there's some funny camera stuff, like funny sight gags where they're running to the playground.
Yeah,
he's like looking around.
And
you just see her like run really like ridiculously in the bathroom or background. The background. When the background is just all bathrooms.
That's an interesting point to say that, because it's like it casts such a wide net in so many different things, and all of them are as successful as the others. Yeah. Like, because you could also say there are some things that were gags that didn't necessarily play, or like a joke that didn't land, or there was a dramatic moment that maybe made your.
But there wasn't one that stood out as
and they were as successful as any of the other ones.
It's so interesting because a lot of the reviews that I've been reading have been people criticizing its imbalance, and people say that it bounced around too much, and I just disagree. I really don't. I love
the frenetic nature of it. I love how like schizophrenic it can be.
The fact that it bounces around makes it a tone of its own.
Well, people were delighted. I mean, that's what you're talking about, like feeling the audience being like excited, and it is like, it was just such this is maybe just hinging on its own concept, but I really genuinely think, and my optimistic side wants to think that we will get more movies like this with a brand new hook or whatever, but no, I know that's what I'm saying. Optimistic side. The wrong side.
Yeah, it's the incorrect.
Yeah. You think this movie's going to do well financially?
Well, who knows? If it gets a wide, it won't do well if it's limited. Limited never really does well.
Yeah, is that true? I don't know though.
Was it like a $10 million budget?
It depends on how long it's out and how, especially over this week in the word of mouth. But what was I even getting at? What was I starting to say?
I'm gay and.
Oh right. So I wanted to say real quick, just so everyone knows.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember.
It was whether or not we're going to see more movies like this.
Yes.
Right. But so the audience in it, because why I would love if that happened is because you could just feel everybody being so excited by a new set of rules being
was really
presented
refreshing.
to them.
Yeah.
A new or it wasn't even mythology, but like, I don't know, what would you call that? They were just excited for the next story thing.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, and now that she tripped, and now there's the robots there now too, and everyone was just kind of like so excited.
Yeah, every level of escalation I was on board with. You know, it's funny because when I think about this movie, I'm like, yeah, this is like a 72%. That's pretty accurate. Or it's like, you know, three out of 4. And I can't think of a bad thing to say about it at the same time. But for whatever reason, my brain, and like just as somebody who watches a lot of art, just went, you know, this isn't amazing, but I really fucking liked it. And I couldn't tell you why. What is negative?
It's fair. Well, it's what I was saying. I mean, I do think that there is somewhat of an emotional disjointedness at a certain point.
Well, that's something really cool to say about a film that you know has its I mean, that's about any film. The film that you know that it has flaws, but you can still adore.
I just can't figure out what they are.
But overall,
exactly.
I just fucking dug that. I don't know what this else.
Well, you don't have to necessarily. I mean, you don't got to have beef with it. I was even just you saying that. I was like, okay, Jesus, what was the last time I saw something where I unabashedly wouldn't change a frame? And it might have been.
I'm not saying that. I just don't know what I would change exactly. I just think that everything in its place works in this movie, and I think fucking with it might make it not work. Like, I'm sure there's an overhaul somewhere in this movie where you can make this a fantastic film, but I think as it stands, this is just like a cult movie that I think a movie that will be a cult movie.
You think about like Back to the Future, and like if they went back to the Future and like made the time travel rules like airtight and like made it you know perfect, it wouldn't really be that good of a movie.
Yeah, but who gives a fuck? That movie was all about like World War II generation nostalgia jerking off, where it doesn't matter why he went back in time. It's the fact that now we're seeing Chuck Berry's or Marvin Berry's band
Texaco.
Yeah,
you guys remember getting an old Coca-Cola?
Exactly.
Remember you had a
Texaco?
Exactly. And we do the same shit today, where like anything about like the 60s, the 70s, and 80s, it's just baby boomers like nostalgia jerking off, and it's like
that's why we're getting Star Wars movies.
I'm gonna slam on the brakes and swerve right to the second. Just for this is irrelevant to Colossal, but you just made me think about it.
Cool.
So you know in Back to the Future when Marty doesn't know that the bottle has to be opened with a bottle opener. That's dumb.
Yeah.
And going further, I have noticed this trend recently where in movies, or it's really just people. It's in like I see on people's Facebook posts and Twitter posts. People assume that anybody like our age, so born early 90s and onward, don't know like what VHSs are or what tapes are or what analog anything is. And
it's like a joke being like, oh my God, what's a VHS?
You even know what a Walkman is? It's like, yeah, you stupid idiot. Do you know how to count years? I had one of those for 5.
Yeah. I watched my first goddamn Lion King on a VHS.
It's people. I think it's people that are 10 years older than us, or 10 years younger than us, because feasibly, if you're born in 2002, you might have never seen a VHS.
That's fair, but that's 10 years gap between like you can't like if I my little brother's in middle school, I don't expect him to necessarily, but even so though, because he had older siblings, he was watching VHSs. He was what I mean? Like
for instance, I was listening to music at work the other day, and somebody went like, what do you listen to? I said, Hall & Oates. And they're like, wow, you know that band? I'm like, oh, you mean one of the biggest selling acts of all time, Hall & Oates?
Incredibly famous like thing.
Licensed music in literally every goddamn thing, Hall & Oates. Yeah, no, I am listening to that.
Hall & Oates, every time I hear their name, I want cereal.
Yeah.
Like you want some like a big bowl of the Quakers.
Why would that be, Dom?
I think we all know.
Halls, my favorite cereal.
Halls, I put
Halls. I mean, we
drops in a bowl, take a bunch and I pour milk in and I scoop them up and suck them.
I like that menthol milk at the end when I drink it and it just like ice freezes my throat.
Yeah.
That's how you wake up in the morning.
Colossal was good.
Yeah,
Colossal was great. It was a great movie.
It was good. I feel a little.
What's your biggest beef with it?
I've said it already. It's that I can say whatever I want to retrospectively and objectively now that I'm putting it all together. But in the movie, I definitely felt the like speed bump of changing gears. And until the end of it, it literally ended, and I was like, "Fuck!" I didn't quite have as powerful of an experience as I wanted to because I was still getting over. A shift,
For me, it was, and again, like this same exact thing, unpacking it here and talking about it, I maybe got over it a little bit more. But in the theater, as you said, the really tectonic shift in Jason Sudeikis' character from being the kind guy and then all of a sudden being literally a mustache twirling ass.
Yeah, there's a line. There's a line for sure, and I think that is. I could say, as much as I really like the movie and what it's doing, I will. It is. A failing is too hard of a word, but it's a slight off note.
Sure.
Where it's a bump. It's like a bump. It's like
he gets so bad. He gets so.
Well, it's like a speed.
Yeah.
It's like a speed bump that has like a crack in it. It didn't derail the movie, but there's a moment where you're like, oh shit. Yeah. All right.
It's so funny how when I've rationalized it away as the alcohol symbolism in my head so hard, it does not read as a little bit of an issue to me.
That's fine.
Like,
that's what makes me think about it again, because you're like, yeah, you're right, because that's what would happen.
That makes me go like. That makes me question my ability to look at this like not outside of myself, to look at it and go like, will this be a problem for other people? Because when you guys are saying this, all I'm saying in my head is, no, you're fucking wrong. You're incorrect.
Dude, when you're telling me the metaphor thing, again, I have a hard time jumping on board with that. Specifically because it doesn't ever feel like she's being tempted by him. It feels like, and now what I can explain away
is the fact that she's just like comfort, like he is comfort, and that's what alcohol is.
But that would work as a metaphor if you understood why maybe she would want to still be with him, or if we saw in however it was shot or in something in her performance that she is so broken that it's sad that she can't get away from him. Do you kind of know what I mean?
Yeah,
but I didn't necessarily feel that. It just felt like, oh, she's dealt with her shit. She's not going to drink anymore. She realized she doesn't want to kill people. Happy ending halfway through the movie, and now there's a villain who is a super villain, and just now we have to do this guy. We have to figure that out, and that's fair, because I think how I can explain it away to maybe make peace with it a little harder is that her even being there, her even having this conflict with the dude was her fault in the first place, and it's maybe an extension of a further repercussion of, even though it's like kind of how you're saying in a way where so she's not drinking anymore, she hasn't drank for a week or whatever, a few days.
Right.
However, she started the ball rolling on this very dangerous thing, which is that guy.
Yeah. And
that's going to continue to blossom and flower, even though she's tried to stop already.
I feel that. You know, Aaron said something as soon as the movie was over. He said, like, what a gem. I think that's really what this is.
You're right.
This probably isn't going to find huge success. This is a gem of a movie that you're going to find on Netflix and go, fuck, that was great. That was good. And it's like, not only that, there's plenty of great gem movies that are very heady and intelligent. This is a movie you could really show anybody.
Yeah,
I agree.
That's very interesting.
Nuance and layers to it that just will work for a general audience.
I agree.
That's rare.
You're right.
That's rare in my opinion.
Usually you're like, oh, dude,
usually you're wrong, but this time you were right.
No, yeah, I'm so used to.
This is what a blockbuster. This is what a blockbuster looks like, just really thrown down to the bottom level. Mm-hmm. In regards to subject matter and scale.
Yeah,
and people could still handle.
Yeah, you were gonna say something?
I just was so on board with that, because it's interesting when you think about everybody saying like, oh, dude, you got to see this movie. You got to see this movie. It's very rare that when someone's doing that, it's like fucking Star Wars. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if it is, it's because it's Star Wars, and you're like, how have you not fucking seen that, idiot?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But it's never like, oh no, there was this movie came out in 2017. Oh, so it was not many people saw it.
Well, it makes you want to get on.
It's called Sad Balloon. It is an hour and a half of a bench.
Is there a balloon? No.
Yeah,
there's not one balloon.
Yeah. Exactly, and I think a movie. So, just from a marketing perspective, you want to talk about a movie that gets you in its corner, where it's like, I know that I need to fight for this. Right. I need to advocate for this movie. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's done something. It's touched something inside of you, and it's like, that's the power of art, where it's like, this is now a part of you, and you need to share it with everyone. That's great. That's
what's also, and I feel weird bringing this up secondhand, but Amber really was like making a point of like that. And it is important, and I'm not trying to restrict it. Like, I just maybe feel uncomfortable being like a dude saying this point, but she was really harping on like that the end of this movie like just made her feel really strong, like as a girl, as like a woman.
Great.
And she felt like powerful. I could feel when the movie was over. I looked at her face. It was like right after she threw him into fucking oblivion.
Yeah.
And she was just like, she was just like reveling in it. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I've had so many times where it's like, Captain America smashes to black, and written and directed by so-and-so, and I'm like, cool.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. God, oh, sweet. I want to jump and punch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was it's neat that's so I don't know. I would say in that regard, if that's doing this for people, for girls, that's like fucking,
and what's more,
that's rock solid.
In a way that's not exploitative, not in the way that not in the way that like it's literally exploitative of women or something, in a way like a cheesy way where it's like there's a lot of movies where the girl gets over on the guy at the end, or like she beats her killer or her attacker. In this, there's something special about it. There's an emotional and physical catharsis at the same time, and not in a dramatic, overwrought way. There's something special about the end of this movie.
I think it was, even though again at the end it was missing some mark for me. Right. There was something that I wasn't quite at like 100% downloaded.
Did the crowd know that she did that? Because they all seemed to gather around her.
They didn't. No, it looks
almost like they're like, our extras don't go more than 15 feet of Anne. She will attack you.
Yeah, it bites very hard.
Yes.
Yeah, I loved that, by the way. That was a moment that I remembered where I expected everyone to come up and be cheering her, because again, that's what the movie's about. It's about recognition. It's about getting that feeling of being recognized.
Oh, that's another can of worms.
And then,
is it?
And well, what's another thing that I got from it? Tim?
Fucking, I can't tell you what you got from it.
No,
exactly. Oh, it's wow. Yeah, I just got fucking owned on my own podcast.
He laid a bear trap in front of you, and you still walked onto it.
You looked at it, you said,
metal. I just reached down. All right, I think we could do final thoughts, right? It's about that time.
I agree. Go see it.
Perfect. Aaron, final thought?
Yeah, I'll reiterate what I said 24 hours ago.
One sentence.
It was a gem of a movie. Everybody should take a look at it.
You want more movies like this, and if you want more movies like this, go see this movie.
Yeah, support it.
And this might be, I'm sorry I didn't touch on this, and I'm not going to be able to expound on it, so don't ask me. Might be one of the best Anne Hathaway performances I've seen in a very long time.
I felt the same way.
I agree.
She was very good.
Yeah.
Like just being Anne Hathaway does this weird thing where she plays normal ass women really good. Just with a lot of conviction. Like
Jason Bateman, baby.
Sure.
It's just different tones.
Exactly.
Like,
a female Jason Bateman where she could just play comedy straight, sort of.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of movies that are bad movies, such as Bride Wars, that I think she's fantastic in, just because that's just who she is. And I used to really dislike her. Fucking, it's a great performance.
You have that bad taste because of Batman, and I felt the same way. Still, when I watch that movies, you look at it, and sometimes it feels like she's pretending to be Catwoman.
Sure.
And you're like, well, that's not what I want it to feel like. You're actually that person.
Not a great Anne Hathaway.
But this was
go see it.
Princess Diaries. She's great in that shit.
Oh yeah, she is good in Princess Diaries.
She's funny as hell in that movie.
Yeah,
both of them.
Very funny. Yeah, she's great. She has great comedic timing. She's beautiful. She's a good dramatic actress.
I was realizing, when I realize I like someone, especially in stuff like this, because I have a huge heartburn.
Heartburn.
I got a lot of heartburn. I got heartburn, and we gotta get off.
It's like
this.
That's not what that phrase means,
I need to pop
right?
a Pepto. I'm feeling rough.
When I feel love, oil comes up my throat and it burns.
My vocal cords, they just start singeing.
Indigestion. When you're doing a shot where it's just someone like kind of squirrely running across the street and like putting a piece of paper in their jacket, and when I'm watching that and I'm like, I like what you got. That's like such a successful bit of performance when I'm like, you're just fun to fucking
bit of
watch.
Physical business, like if you will. Yes.
That's a whole other
physical business. Not a joke for anyone. Okay, we'll do a three-headed critic, I guess, and kick this one out of here. Do you know this game?
You can imagine.
Okay,
so is it one word?
Basically, everybody says one word. It keeps going around the circle until it's a coherent thought about the movie. I'm going to start you off. Pick any word.
Big.
I'll go to me. Big?
Yeah, that's his first word.
Okay. Big movies.
Sometimes.
Need.
A.
Small.
Hathaway.
Period.
I can't tell you why I like that one so much, but it might be my favorite.
That's a great one, dude. Big movies sometimes need a small Hathaway.
Very good. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much. This has been Reasonable Beef. Thank you, Aaron Daniel Jacobs, for joining us. Do you have any plugs? Anything cool coming out?
Watch Milo Murphy's Law on Disney XD.
And buy the other one on DVD and Blu-ray.
Oh, Phineas and Ferb and the albums.
Phineas and Ferb.
We got albums too.
Yeah.
I'm really.
Are you on the albums?
Yeah.
Fucking, that's rad. Go buy the red. Thank you, guys. Final thoughts, Dom? Moment is zen.
Oh. If you're ever feeling a little bit cold, what's better than standing right in front of the heater is take a nice hot shower.
Fuck, that That's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
I never really thought
it
of
regulates
that way.
your temperature. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. This has been Reasonable Beef. Hey, please send emails to reasonablebeef@gmail.com. We're going to read them at our month-end wrap-up show. That's going to be for Patreon subscribers exclusively, but the first episode will be up for everyone very soon. And hey, spoken about Patreon, go to patreon.com/reasonablebeef. Give what you can. Make the show happen. I think we're up to like $50. That's cool. We can be up to 100. I'm talking about the important shit here, and you're chuckling like a dumb clown.
You went spud about Patreon. A spud about Patreon.
Look, I'm losing my own battle with alcoholism over here. This is why it's not working out.
Sad.
Thank you guys. Cool. Thank you so much for listening. Have a
Great
wonderful
shit,
night.
Guys.
Go fuck yourselves. Thanks, everyone.
Love you, mean it.
There ain't nothing that's